Have you ever felt that a part of you is missing? That another person could make you whole? Welcome to Truly Terrified, Paranormal versus Physics, where we talk about some really weird stuff, and Joe the Scientist explains how it's not possible, or maybe it is. I'm Lynn, and
I'm Joe.
I had never even heard this term before until I started researching about telepathy, and then that was the one thing that kept coming up, and so I was really curious and I looked into it. The reason why it comes up is people say that they're getting messages from their twin flame, and I didn't know what that meant. So a twin flame is a new age concept that describes a deep connection between two people who are said to be two halves of one whole. It is different from a soulmate. The idea is that one soul splits into two bodies, and the two halves want to be reunited.
So could it be like, it doesn't have to be like a soulmate, man, woman, whatever. It could be like a person and a dog?
Well, it depends on if you believe that dogs have souls. I personally, if their souls exist, I believe that dogs have souls. So I don't know. The problem is that when you're talking about something as weird as this, people don't go beyond their first initial gut reaction, their emotional reaction to the whole thing. And so they're not really thinking rationally at all. They're not like saying, what does this even frickin' mean? They're just saying, and I'm trying really not to belittle them, because I think that there's a serious issue, which I'll get into later on, but it's concerning. So it's said that they share a life path, pain, trauma, values, interests, and a moral compass.
What's the life path means?
What's going to happen to you in your life. Like,
did they explain that, or are you just inferring?
Well, this is what I think they infer through other things they say, is that in the pre-mortal existence, before you are born, you choose, like we touched on last week, you choose to be, let's say, impoverished because you need to fix something that you did in a past life, or you choose to be a man where you were a woman in a past life because you treated men poorly, or whatever those things are. So I think that's what they mean by life path. I might be wrong on that, but that's what I feel like.
Well, so the reason I ask, because a lot of times people use a concept, use a word to stand for a general concept where that concept doesn't actually have any like real world meaning.
Yeah, I don't think this has any real world meaning, because I think that they're not thinking beyond the words that they're saying.
Yeah.
They're just life path. Doesn't that sound pleasant?
Yeah,
I have
exactly.
a life path. My life path is one of barefoot walks through meadows.
Yeah, and you can't really turn that into an actual like observations in the real world.
Right. So I don't know what that means in this context, what those people mean by saying that. So they also say that, and when I say they, I mean from lots of different sources. So it's not like a particular group that is the head of twin flames. They say that there's a strong sense of connection and familiarity, and you sometimes between the two twin flames whose souls have split into two different bodies. They sometimes call them mirror souls because they are said to reflect each other. Here is one of the problems with this that they bring up over and over. This mirror soul thing. So let's say let's back up. Are you familiar with the good twin, bad twin? It's usually a storyline. It's in movies. It's in books.
Oh, like a trope where.
So you have identical twins, and one is the good twin, they get all the good traits, and the other one is evil. Okay, so that's kind of what they imply, that it's the yin and yang. It's So they're mirror souls. Because
it's more aesthetically pleasing than realistic.
But a mirror reverses. So I'm kind. The mirror then would be saying unkind. So we're talking about two people who believe their souls split and they went into two different bodies, presumably before birth, and that they have in some ways similar beliefs and paths and morals, but in other ways they're opposite. They're opposite.
The implication, it's like a zero-sum thing. Like this person gets this trait, this person gets the opposite trait. Because they cancel out when you combine them.
Yeah, that's my feeling.
Which is like one of those one of those things you learn in life that's like, oh, if I eat too much chocolate on this day, then I have to not eat as much on the next day or else I'll get fat, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is, that does not apply in many, many, many cases. That model does not apply in lots of cases. So it applies in some cases, doesn't apply in a lot of cases. It's not like it's guaranteed. You have to counteract certain things with everything.
Okay, well, twin flame relationships can be intense. They can also be toxic and codependent, as you can imagine, if these people have opposite traits. Some say that they can bring up issues that need to be experienced and learned from, i.e., horrible things happening to you. That's what people mean when they say that. You have to learn from something. Therefore, you're going to suffer.
That, again, literally what I just said applies to that too. The implication, based on life experience typically, and memes, is something, you did something, something happened, you learn from it. So like, it's also very much related to like punishment for crime. So like, you do something, something bad happens, you get punished, and that's like an aspect of the learning component to correct you. Again, it doesn't have to go like that. In fact, probably most cases don't go like that. Someone does something horrible and nothing bad happens to them.
Yes.
They live their whole lives perfectly fine.
There are lots of people who are truly horrible people doing horrible things.
And
nothing happens.
Even if there's like reincarnation or something, there's no guarantee that's how it is. You'd have to have like some evidence to think that. And as far as I know, no one has any evidence besides like, you know, things that could have other explanations. So like, for instance, Hitler, if he was reincarnated, there's no guarantee he was reincarnated as a leper or something.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think that it's really important to remember that your brain can trick you. And your brain can tell you things are real that are not, or that things are not real that are. I think it's really important. So if somebody listening believes in twin flames, you have to find the evidence, not just go by a feeling. Feelings are how churches trick you and how governments trick you.
I should say, the reason why you want the evidence is to rule out other alternative explanations to what you're seeing.
That's true.
So, like, you have a real connection to this person. You think they might be your twin flame or whatever. But maybe it's telepathy. Maybe they're an alien and they're doing some kind of weird shit on your brain.
That's true.
Maybe it's just a coincidence.
Well, it's not true.
Maybe
weird shit on
you
your
had a
brain.
past life and you knew this person. Maybe, you know, so
There's
now you have to
lots
rule
of-
those things
yes,
out.
And there's no way to rule them out. There is no way to rule
See,
them
that's
out.
the problem with all this supernatural stuff.
It is very much a problem. Okay, so the scuttlebutt on the internet is that twin flame relationships bring up these issues that you need to learn from. But it's important to remember that in any relationship, you deserve respect and kindness, and to not accept behavior that you wouldn't accept in a friend relationship. So if you're in a relationship and you believe this is your twin flame and they're bringing up toxic reactions in you, or you're bringing
Toxic
up
meaning
dangerous, cruel,
they're hurting you.
Not positive things. If a relationship you're having with anybody, you're causing them to feel that way, or they're causing you to feel that way, this is not a healthy relationship. And because I believe that the purpose of life, whether you're a worm or a human being or possibly an alien, whatever it is, the actual true purpose of life is to seek pleasure. And we know this because procreation is pleasurable, eating is pleasurable. Both of those things are necessary for the continuation of a species. Sleeping can be pleasurable, although in my case it is not so pleasurable.
Well, consider if you're very sleep deprived, the most pleasurable thing would be sleeping.
That is true. There are things that, you can observe animals get into water. It's like when we get into a bathtub, when we're tired or probably not so much a bathtub, when we get into a swimming pool, when we're hot and tired. It's the it's pleasurable. That is the purpose of life. So don't tell me that there's some other purpose that you are supposed to just be jacked around and emotionally abused because your soul split off with someone else.
Well, I have to say, there's another one of those heuristics that if you do this really unpleasant thing, it's a zero-sum situation. So later on, you'll get some good thing. So like pain, for instance, push through the pain, and that will somehow build character or muscle or whatever.
You'll get some positive
Again,
later on.
Not necessarily the case. Does not apply in every case. In fact, most cases, probably that does not apply.
I can guarantee if you stub your toe, there is no positive thing. Unless you believe in luck, good luck, bad luck, yin yang, it's going to somehow somebody else will not stub their toe and they'll be spared.
Yeah, so you'd have to believe in some supernatural component like that. Typically, if you stub your toe, there's no good from it. It's just damage. Hurts you now, probably later.
In a not New Age explanation, Angela Amayas, who is a licensed clinical social worker and clinical director of the Institute for Trauma-Informed Relationships, based in Cheyenne, Wyoming, she explained, quote, "A twin flame relationship is thought to be a spiritual or soulful connection in which two people are equally matched in their commitment to themselves, to the relationship, and to the other." End quote. Basically, she's saying it's a deep and strong connection to each other. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the people who believe their souls split in two.
You're talking about a supernatural.
We're talking about a supernatural thing. We're exploring the apparently fairly common belief that souls can split in two at some point in the premortal existence, and if you find the other half of your soul, only then will you be complete.
Okay, so one thing I have to ask. There's like an implication, okay, you split into two whatever souls, like one entity splits into two souls. Can those souls then further split like
amoebas?
Like you could have like 20 like parts of the same soul?
I don't know. I haven't seen anything about that, but that would make sense then, because there's actually a precedence in the way things work, because that's how cells divide.
Yeah.
So
interesting. So the implication is that like your soul, the people's souls in the past were much more powerful somehow.
And they split,
like,
split.
Yeah, now they're like diminished somehow.
Well, or demented.
Yeah,
so Rachel Katz, who is a wellness embodiment coach, nutrition scientist, holistic nutritionist, yoga and meditation teacher, and founder of The Full Life by Rachel. I'll include the link in the show notes. She says there's a difference between the terms soulmates and twin flames, as I said earlier or touched on. She says, quote, "We have many soulmates throughout this lifetime, and in fact, many people believe that we choose our soul tribe before we even come into our physical body. Soulmates can be in the form of a friend, pet, family member, romantic partner. They are usually our perfect match and come into our life to awaken something in us and teach us a lesson. They are also someone that we have an instant connection with and feel as if we've known them forever." End quote. So then she goes on to define twin flames and says that you only have one twin flame. You might have many soulmates, but only one twin flame. And they are literally the other half of your soul. Unlike a perfect match, they're your perfect mirror. They mirror back to you all the qualities that you're missing. So they reflect everything back to you, good, bad, and ugly, and everything in between.
They're saying it's not like their qualities are the opposite, but rather, the qualities you're missing, they have. And
maybe, because if the quality you're having is just you're sweet as candy, you're just the sweetest
then they're
person,
horrible.
Then they got to have because nobody can be
wouldn't
that sweet.
Always lead, like if someone believed this and they sought that out, wouldn't that mean they always lead to a bad situation?
I believe so.
Like if they're a horrible person, they seek a good, kind person. That's bad.
I think that's probably true. But you might wonder why I'm so passionate about this, and you will discover that shortly, because I am so absolutely disgusted by this whole conversation.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the whole thing about the mirror and good and bad and ugly and everything in between, that doesn't really sound good.
No,
it doesn't sound good at all.
doesn't.
She went on to say twin flames, she being Rachel Katz. So Rachel Katz went on to say that twin flames usually come to the physical world to teach you how to love unconditionally and to awaken unconditional love throughout the planet. So a grander purpose, right? But I don't know if the people who develop these theories do it to deliberately mess with others who are emotionally or psychologically fragile, but that's the result. That is absolutely bonkers to say that somebody exists. Their sole existence is to bring you to a higher enlightenment. And so doesn't that diminish their existence to merely being the servant of your soul?
I mean,
that's
no,
hideous.
that's baked into the.
Yes.
If your soul is incomplete and their soul is incomplete, you are diminished somehow until you're with them. But I gotta say, like, assuming that it's not true that the soul thing you split and whatever, this is always gonna lead to a bad situation.
Okay, so I'm not saying it's not possible that there are twin flames or soulmates. I'm not saying that at all. But the way that human beings have taken this and developed it and promoted it and made money off of it and communicated it to people who are probably mentally ill and all of those things is hideous because...
You're saying like because they're opportunistically trying to gain something out of manipulating these people into a bad situation.
Yes, and the way they're doing it is by manipulating them emotionally. Okay, so here's a list of some ways you might know that you've met your twin flame. And I did not copy down everything because some of it was just stupid. It was just, I mean, it's all stupid, but some of it was really stupid. You'll feel an instant connection with them. Well, I felt an instant connection with plenty of people over the course of my lifetime. And unless the whole cells dividing thing is true and my soul has split into myriad pieces and parts and parcels, I really have a hard time imagining that all those people were part of my soul. Also, the world is a goddamn big fucking place, and presumably souls are not stuck in one location, so it's doubtful that out of the billions of people on the face of the earth, you're going to run into somebody who is that. You will have weird similarities that you know just aren't a coincidence. I have weird similarities with people all the time.
So sometimes, like, I run into these things online, like people having a discussion about the weird, unique thing they do, and then a lot of people say, no, I do that same thing.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, even if it's a 1% chance, just pretty small, that this is a unique thing, there's going to be a lot of other people.
Yes.
Millions, potentially hundreds of millions of people. If
you interact with people on the internet, which you're interacting with a lot of people, presumably like on, different social media platforms. So you'd be interacting with hundreds of people, if not thousands of people. If you have a greater profile exposure, you'd maybe be reacting with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. In day-to-day life, if you work in a large company, you'd probably be interacting with a lot of people. It is entirely possible that you would interact with people who share some of those strange, quirky little things about you that you would think, wow, this is really weird. I've never met anybody else like that before. That doesn't mean that nobody like that exists except for this one person.
Yeah.
It just means that you just didn't have a conversation with the person about it, or you just didn't run into somebody
Now,
yet.
if you suspect that there is some like unique trait between you, whatever, you should seek to falsify that. So look online or ask people if they know anybody else with those traits.
Right.
Because otherwise you can't falsify. You want to be able to falsify the twin flame thing.
Okay, so this is your initial attraction. You feel an instant connection with them. Usually that is some kind of, they appeal to you physically. That's usually, whether, and friendship can do that too. Somebody, you just look at them and you just think, oh, they look friendly. They just look like somebody I want to know. And I think that that is a universal human thing, that you look at people and you judge what they look like and how that makes you feel. So you feel an instant connection with them. And then you notice that you have some similarities that for whatever reason you feel are not a coincidence, probably because of your limited exposure to other people. Now it gets creepy. Now it gets really freaking creepy.
Okay.
The beginning, I'm gonna do it in a creepy voice too.
Okay.
Because this is creepy. The beginning will feel like a fairy tale. You'll be inseparable. You'll feel magical. Okay? That sounds like some kind of being very, very, what is the word?
It makes me think like codependence. Like,
Okay, so to me, that borders on some kind of not healthy
yeah.
attraction. Thinking that it's a fairy tale.
Now,
I mean, in the beginning of all relationships, all romantic relationships, most people probably think this is perfect. It's perfect. It's like a fairy
they're
tale.
not saying though the twin flame thing is guaranteed romantic, right?
No.
It makes me think it's kind of coming from the assumption that it is a twin flame thing.
Yeah.
So like you have this connection with the person, you think, oh wow, it's going to be magical, whatever. Instead of like you meet this person, you really hit it off, and then it's just really fun. Like whatever you're doing, it just happens to be fun. After the fact, you look back and say, wow, that was really fun, instead of looking forward and say, wow, this is going to be so much fun. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Big difference.
Okay, so the next one is you'll have many obstacles trying to keep you apart. If there are obstacles trying to keep you apart, it might be you shouldn't be together.
So
this could be a difference. Wait a minute. This could be a difference in your age, differences in religion, physical distance, sickness, etc. So there are obstacles. Those obstacles might be social obstacles that are there for a reason, to prevent you from getting in bad situations.
Yeah, like if they're saying age, and so you're using that to justify, like,
let's say a 50-year-old man goes after a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah. One thing is that if there is no obstacles and the model requires obstacles, that then leads it to be more falsifiable. Makes it so, again, so if there are no obstacles, you can then falsify the model as it's described, which is good. That's excellent. But again, it's like it's like funneling itself to the worst possible situations.
So up to this point, you met somebody, you felt an instant connection with them. You discovered in talking to them, you had some weird similarities that were just too weird. It couldn't just be a coincidence. And it feels like a fairy tale. It's so much fun. It's so exciting. You're inseparable. It just feels magical. And then there's just one thing after another getting in your way, making problems, making it hard to stay together because the age difference or your religion is different or whatever those things. And then things start to get crazy. As if that's not crazy enough. It triggers everything. Your twin flame triggers everything within you that needs to be healed. Therefore, they bring up a lot of your pain, confusion, and intensity.
So from the get-go, it's supposed to be bad.
It's bad. And then when you separate with them, you feel the most excruciating pain you've ever felt. Yeah, because breakups hurt. Breakups really hurt. Especially if it's some kind of weird codependent, whatever this thing is going on. It also says there is usually a runner and a chaser. That's dangerous. That's not good.
I don't know. So we're both coming at it from the assumption that twin flame thing is not true. If it was true, as usual, this model is probably also not quite right. But even assuming it is, I think in my, like, I would rather just not participate in that
yes.
and be a split soul forever than suffer through that. That sounds terrible.
It does sound terrible. So it also goes on to say you'll be able to connect with them. You'll usually be able to connect with them telepathically. And I've said this before, and I will say it again now. If you can't confirm that someone communicated with you, they did not communicate with you, you had a thought in your head,
you have to
it's
confirm
probably a figment of your imagination.
Yeah.
And it says, so you will truly love this person unconditionally. And at first it might seem to the world as if you are obsessed with them, your world will revolve around them and it'll feel as if you love them more than any other person in your life, including yourself. No matter what, you would do anything for them, even die for them. But this is different than some unhealthy obsession. You love them because they are you.
I don't know, man. It seems like this is engineered.
You're right.
To be fucked up.
You're right. This is totally unhealthy. That doesn't even qualify as a relationship. That's just an obsession. In fact, there is a group that shall remain nameless for legal reasons who run what is, by all accounts, a cult. Lots of money changes hands, and as you can imagine, with the promised goal of identifying your twin flame. So you take classes from them and courses from them and give them money, and they will identify your twin flame and teach you how to identify them and teach you how to interact with them. And then when they identify them, if the person they identify is not someone you're attracted to or you're really even interested in, it doesn't matter. They tell you that you have to aggressively pursue the person because they have traits you have to interact with to fulfill your true and full, complete purpose in this life. So obviously, beware. I didn't actually find where this first started. So I suspect that it probably was that organization that I'm not going to name, or one similar to it, that started this whole, hype about twin flame business. But this is nothing that you can't go back and look at ancient history and see that, a long time ago people called things twin flames. Now there were people who said, this is my soulmate. We can find in ancient literature, people felt like they had a brother who was their soulmate, a brother in arms, just somebody they really felt very connected to and they've shared a lot of things with. And there were people certainly who were in romantic relationships who felt like they'd found their soulmate. But not this this right here, this whole twin flame business is bonkers. It is bonkers. So I actually didn't find any real success stories of twin flame relationships for two reasons. Number one, you can't really prove that your soul's split in half and this other person is your spiritual other half. Number two, according to much of what I read, by their very nature, twin flames are like yin and yang and very controversial as far as how they get along. And so they probably experience a lot of discord. And discord does not make a successful relationship by my metrics. And most mature, emotionally healthy people would agree. So if it's a relationship that is unpleasant and not harmonious, that's not successful. So I couldn't find successful twin flame relationships because of this. I could find people who said they had had successful reunions with their twin flame through that organization or through other people who are taking advantage of them. Could be some of the people I mentioned earlier, quoted earlier, could be some of those people do the same thing. But when they related what they were experiencing, it was all very one-sided. It was like, I am a better person for this. My faults have been illuminated. It's not a relationship. It's like you've taken this person and you're using them for what you can glean out of it. That's not a successful or emotionally stable relationship.
So, it doesn't sound to me like there's any implication it's entirely romantic thing. Like, if it's just your soul splitting, your twin flame could be a goldfish.
Right.
So I don't know. It sounds to me like there's some sort of opportunism here where some people are trying to make money off of the idea.
Yes, absolutely.
And the most obvious conclusion it's like a dating system where, like, from first principles, your goldfish twin flame is complete. Hopefully, that doesn't apply to the goldfish. You're not going to have a romantic relationship with your goldfish. I'm really hoping so. So I don't know. It's pretty bizarre to me.
It is very bizarre.
Like, even from a supernatural perspective.
It is. There's no, as far as I could tell, there is no precedent saying that this has any bearing in any ancient practice or religion or anything. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, somebody should tell me I'm wrong and show me where. Come on the show and talk to us about it, because I really couldn't find anything. But one thing I did see is a lot of people posting comments on Reddit and Quora and some other places, just, bulletin board type things, where they said that they would have a reoccurring dream about somebody that was going to be their future spouse, and they really loved them, and they knew that they were their twin flame, and they were seeking them and looking for them and asking for help on how to find them. And I think that it's those people who are unhappy, lonely, confused by the nature of dreams, maybe, who are being taken advantage of. And again, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that anybody who asks you for money, what gives them the power to identify something that you are supposed to be able to identify automatically? There's something wrong here. There's a problem, and you should steer clear of that situation at all costs.
So one more thing I'd like to say. I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast, but I said it in real life. You can deduce things, you can induce things. Inducing things is like you look at a bunch of examples of some common thing, and you create a model that encompasses all of them. Deducing is you take a model, essentially, and you fit things you're seeing to it, or you create examples of, things you could see. And so if I said, yeah, this person, I know they're my twin flame. We might not get along all the time, but, we're just inseparable. That's me saying, that's like inducing the twin flame concept. That's me using my words creatively to just describe what is It doesn't mean there's a supernatural concept, whatever. I mean, there might be, but I'm not saying anything about any supernatural concept. I'm just saying what it is. Whereas if I start from the assumption that there's a supernatural thing going on, then there's going to be edge cases where it's weird, it doesn't really fit, like, oh, this person, they must be my twin flame because I'm having such a good time with them. That means I won't get along with them in some way. Even if you've gotten along with them just fine so far. I would just really encourage everyone from not assuming something grander is true. Just focus on really what you see is really happening and react to that.
Truly Terrified is a Salt of the Earth production. Tell us your story and send us your comments. You can send us a 3-minute voicemail at 715-575-9420 or text us at that same number. Email us at lynnandjoeonthego@gmail.com or contact us through Reddit. Our contact information is also in the show notes. Please share, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and never be so terrified you can't run.
And don't let your soul get split.
Kidding.
Oh, creepy.